like, what the heck? But I told my mom that morning, that was at night, I told her that morning, I think this character is going to die. You are a very self-conscious person, Skylar.
I am.
Hello, welcome to Return with a Y. I haven't been here for forever. I took out a long break and then I haven't come to you guys because I haven't done anything. But now I'm here and I'm not alone. I brought Skylar, this person with some identity issues because you're like
I'm transnational.
Kind of like American and British. Is that what you are? Okay, so but his accent sounds like he's smart. So at least that's good. I don't know if that's actually the case. No, I'm just
the
kidding.
only one I've got going for me.
Yeah, well, I'm just kidding. I think you're kind of you have some stuff to say. That's why I invited you because you're great, and I think you have good opinions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Mm-hmm. I've also read a lot of Sanderson, so
exactly. So you have some background there. You convinced me to do this, to read this book. Well, half and half. Like I was already into it. I told you like I was gonna read the Way of Kings. Mm-hmm. Was that I told you? Yeah. I don't even remember how that went, but I told him that I was gonna read the Way of Kings, and you were like, "Oh, you're going to the big guy."
It's a very big series to get yourself into Sanderson's works with. So I figured, the Mistborn series is where I started, and that's where I recommend other people start. It's not his best work, but it's more accessible.
What can you repeat that?
It's not his best work.
Okay, thank you.
I never claimed it was.
So this is how it went. Like I read the book over winter break, and then I lent it to Skylar because it's your best book, but
I just forgot to bring mine back from my family's place.
Sure. And so I made him read it, and that was impressive. Like you read it in how many days?
5.
That's great. It took me like a month. But I think it talks more about the book than me. But we'll get to that. He read it like super quickly, and then while he was reading it, while I was reading it, I will like text him all the time like, I hate that this happened, or oh, this is so cool, or like, what in the world, this is so boring. and Skylar would be like, no, this is great. And then while he was reading it, you would be like, no, this is actually amazing. So it's good. Like he read it again, so he has fresh. When did you read it first?
I was 14. It was 14 years ago now.
Wow.
I read it in a single day.
You're 28.
I am.
You're old.
Thank you.
You are very old.
You'll be there soon, don't worry.
But then you'll be older than me. So, the point today is to analyze Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn, the first book. It's my first time reading Brandon Sanderson. I didn't know that this human existed in the world, and you as a very bad friend never told me about it. I am all the time like, I'm reading this book. Have you read it? But you have never recommended a book to me.
That's true. It's been a long time since I've actually just sat and read like a fantasy book in my leisure time. And in fact, I don't think I've really read like a published book, fictional work in my own time since I started school at Bethlehem.
Yeah, school is very hard. We read many books.
Yeah, it's not really on my radar much these days, and I sort of already went through my cultish Sanderson obsession in my later teen years, and now I don't preach him quite as voraciously as I used to in my youth.
Okay, forgiven then. The way we're gonna do this is talk a little bit about the author, and then we'll have a non-spoiler review and then a spoiler review, where we'll go deeper. So the non-spoiler review is going to be very short, hopefully, to see like people just help you see if you want to read it. And so let's start. I asked you if you know who Brandon Sanderson was. I don't know a lot about him, but I was hoping that you knew some about him.
I mean, I know he's an American author. He's a Mormon, I believe. I don't know how kind of passionate or active he is in that faith, but that's his background. And you can definitely pick up on some elements of it in his writings. He's quite engaged with beliefs and philosophy and religions in most of his works. They're pretty central themes.
Yeah.
And it also helps, what I know about him, though.
It also helps that because I hate spies in books, like bad scenes, like sex in books. So it helps a lot that he's Mormon.
Yes, very,
because
very
there's
clean
nothing
author.
but He's very violent though. He's like
Sure.
there's a lot of like gross stuff happening, and like people like and like so those
Very
are
descriptive.
he's very descriptive of his like violence and like the very disgusting things like the kind of thing.
Yeah, no, he keeps the more like sexual kind of corruption. It's there, and his worlds are very realistic and visceral, like you said. But that kind of stuff
That
he keeps
word's
more on the
interesting.
periphery.
Visceral. Okay.
Visceral is a
You
great
see,
one.
he
One of
had
my favorites.
he had some good like intellectual stuff. So I'm glad you're here. I've never used the word visceral, but it's true. It is visceral. And yeah, something else is that he writes like crazy. Like he writes
Yes.
in months just a bunch of stuff.
Oh
and
man, I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but over the year or two of COVID, I think he put out at least 5 or 6
That's
full
crazy.
books
That's
in
crazy.
under 2 years, and numerous other smaller
crazy.
side projects. Yeah.
And books like this, like they are complex books. Though
Yes.
you can see, and again, we will maybe go over that a little bit on the spoiler review, but this is not a spoiler, but you can see it on the way he writes that he doesn't put a lot of effort in his words. In his writing
yes.
style. It's just like, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this
Yes,
happened.
in the
and then it's-
purely like linguistic kind of capacity, one of my few true criticisms of Sanderson is he's not like a talented linguist. He doesn't write particularly beautifully.
Yeah.
The vast majority of his focus is directed at the plot and the narrative and the character interactions and weaving that all together in a remarkably complex web, which you've only just begun to scratch the surface of in this intro book.
Okay. I'll take that. But yeah, you can see that he writes a bunch because his writing style is just like not really going deeper into how the words go.
Yeah, there are definitely other authors who would probably like scene craft a little bit more intentionally than Sanderson. I know he speaks a lot about his writing style. I haven't sat and like watched any of his podcasts, or he's done lectures on how he writes. Haven't watched those myself, but I suspect there are numerous other authors who would write more, like spend weeks kind of obsessing about a single scene and how exactly
I'm
they
like
want
that.
to phrase that sort of interaction, say, or the description of a particular person.
It takes me forever to write a paper for school because I'm just like, I just go over and over and I just want to, I take a list of synonyms to see what word is gonna give that. So I just get obsessed with the little things. Whereas
That's not hard,
this
right?
is crazy. We're writing a paper. It takes me hours, days, and then Skylar is like, okay, time to write the paper. Wah! Like 2 seconds before the paper is due, but I'm exaggerating. A couple of days or the day before. Usually.
Often the day.
The day off. Yeah.
It still takes you like 8 or 10 hours, but I can get it done.
I think you could be more like a Sanderson man than me. But well, moving on. And the non-spoiler review, the first thing is what is it about? So I'm gonna like kind of say what it's about, and then you can fill in if I'm missing stuff. So basically, we have the problem. What is happening? It's like, what would have happened if the bad guy had win? So you I don't know. You have this world where there's a Lord ruler that has been ruling for 1,000 years, and he's kind of the bad guy. Like the bad guy won sometime 1,000 years ago, and it's kind of the world that was created after that is a very gray world. There's a very lack of color and just sadness and destruction.
You could probably describe it as like a medieval fantasy dystopia kind of setting. Very much like race, class issues going on, brutal tyranny, a government that's hyper controlling.
Yeah. We have also the main characters that are this specifically follows the story of Kelsier and Vian.
Yes.
So
you can't forget the main character's name.
yes, I remember the main character's name. Sorry, okay. Kelsier, and then I'm gonna have my mispronunciation of names. So don't believe him if he corrects me because he might have it wrong too.
I just go with whatever pops into my head.
Okay, yes, that's me too. But then I'm not American or British, so I have a slight, So the point is, you have Vian and Kelsier, who are the main characters. Vian is just a 16-year-old, something like that. and they are allomancers that have a superpower, and we cannot say a lot about that without spoiling, but she has the superpower, and then Kelser comes technically to just like, mentor her or something like that. So he becomes mentor
She gets
figure.
caught up in a scheme he's plotting.
Yeah. And then, he has... Yeah, I don't know what else to say without spoiling.
Sanderson is very hard. I was like, I thought we were doing the non-spoiler review
the non-spoiler. Well, there's... At least it's a mentor type thing that is happening here. You have these two people, and he is in his 30s, and...
the plot of this one in particular, the second and third in the series, have a very different kind of framework. But this first novel is essentially a heist. You could think of it.
What is the heist?
Like when a group of people will plot to steal from a black bank or something.
Okay. Yeah.
So that, like, the whole heist genre of film and stuff. This is very reminiscent of that, particularly to begin with. As the plot unfolds, a lot more world building occurs, and you begin to realize that it's not as surface level as maybe you might initially think, based on how he kind of sets the story off, but it quickly takes it quite a different direction.
Yeah. So a question is, like, I don't know, you might know, and I don't know if it's spoiler, but is this book connected to his other books?
I can't say without spoiling.
Okay. It seems that it is, because he will have said, no, it is not.
My lips are sealed.
Okay. So we're just gonna leave that question hanging for next books that I am going to read.
You have to read at least 2 more books.
Okay. I'll do it. So is there something that you think that a reason why people should read it, non-spoiler reason why people should read this book, that will entice people to read it?
Sanderson creates worlds and histories and religions and magic systems in an extremely meticulous way. He's very much, if anyone has come across Tolkien's second world creation concept, Sanderson is one of the finest I've ever read in that regard. Okay. So if you really enjoy that, if you find novels frustrating where characters' actions don't seem to match the setting they're in, if plot devices feel weak and fall through a lot of times in books, Sanderson, that's, in my opinion, would be one of his finest successes across all the stories he's written. Really a meticulous constructor of his worlds and the plots within them. You can't really separate it's so fine, it's hard to talk about his world building without spoiling his plot, and vice versa. Which not many other authors can claim.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Question: In what place would you rank this novel compared to other Sanderson's books?
Oh man, it's been so long since I've read some of them. I actually had to look up one of the titles of one of the ones he read. I was like, Elantris? How's it even spelled? It's like, I barely remember that one. I'd probably put it somewhere in the middle. I think you can definitely, once you've read particularly his newer ones, you can sort of feel his
growth.
Yeah, it's his first great success in writing, and kind of the one that's put him into the limelight. So you can tell he's much more of an amateur author while he's writing this compared to something like The Way of Kings, particularly his most recent ones. It's 14 years of prolific authorship has done him a lot of good. But that's really, it's kind of like, okay, so this, I might put this somewhere as like a 7, between a 7 and an 8 maybe, across all of the books he's written. But it's only like one step down from most of the other stuff he's done. I wouldn't say it was bad in comparison.
But just saying that he loves Brandon Sanderson, so it's not like...
this is true.
Your opinion is a little biased, but it's okay. I will believe you because I have not read them, so you are my only reference right now. And overall score. What would be your overall score of this book out of 5?
Ooh.
Thinking about world building, plot, characters, themes,
in
writing style.
Everything I've read.
Just this book, this only book. Your overall score of this book
compared to just other literature in general.
Yeah, just even if you wouldn't have any literature to compare to, still you have a score of what it is in
Yeah.
general.
I
Out
think
of
I would
5.
probably have to give it like a 4.5. My critiques of it, I feel, are pretty minimal overall. I don't think they detract from his strengths particularly.
Okay.
I know this is one of those areas we're going to disagree
Yeah,
on.
we're gonna disagree on a couple things, but it's okay. I think it's a very good book too, and I would give it an overall score of 3.9.
Oh, that's very precise.
That's how it is precise.
Okay.
I have my reasons, and I'll give my reasons.
I'm looking forward to hearing that
Okay.
0.01.
Okay. I have my reasons. Maybe the 3.9 is a feeling, you know? Maybe there's a feeling, maybe there's a romance girl that has been disappointed deeply. But in general, that is my overall score.
I don't think that's one of Sanderson's greatest strengths, but it's not a romance novel.
Yeah, but let's get there. So now spoilers review. Now everything that you are under your, how do you say that? You are on.
The onus is on you.
Oh, is that a phrase?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the burden of responsibility.
Okay. What he said is on you if you keep watching. So spoiler review. I didn't put these themes, these like characteristics, categories in any specific order. I just remember them and read them down. First, world building, and then you can give your score on each of those.
Oh, okay.
So we have world building first, and what is your overall score of world building?
10 out of 10.
Okay.
Easy.
Okay.
I mean, I find his world just immediately, from the first couple of chapters, you just, like, it's very different and yet it doesn't break the fantasy setting, but it's like the ash fall and the red sun and the plants and just the grayness and the way he contrasts that with, the magic system.
Okay.
It's meticulous.
yeah. I really like the world building. Like, I feel that it exists somewhere. Yeah. And I think that feeling doesn't always happen in the book. And even some bad books that I'm just like, bleh. But they have such a good world building that I'm just like, okay, there is story behind this. There's so much more. I really like, okay, here comes the problem of pronouncing names. Sazed.
Sazed?
Sazed. I always say Sazed, but he says Sazed, and I don't know. Okay.
And I'm not sure. You'd have to ask Sanderson which one was right.
Okay. Or Sazed. I like Sazed more.
Sazed? We can go with Sazed. Okay,
Sazed. Okay. Zazed is just Zazed. I don't know. Okay, Sazed. I really like the fact that he's like collecting religions because it gives you a feeling of depth. Yes. Of like I don't even know when he first asked. I think it was Kelso that he was like, "So which religion do you want to hear about? This other religion?" And I was like, "What in the world is happening?"
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting when books do things like that you're like, I don't know what is happening, but you don't need to know everything that is happening. Actually, when you don't know everything, it helps for the depth of it.
You don't need to know the history behind, there's like some islands off in the ocean in the past that had their own nation. It's like, it's brought up once, but it's not like, it just serves as a foundation for, the religion that Sazed is putting forward and, that whole dynamic and what that says about the characters in the scene. But without it, it would feel kind of pulled out of thin air.
Yeah.
It really grounds a lot of the character interactions.
Because it's a world building. Like, in our world, we don't know everything. We know some things. We know that places are named some ways. And even the language, when you sit down and you're like, why is this word pronounced this way? You can go back and just find out. But you don't need to find out. Yeah. It just gives the reality to the world we're living in, that some words are pronounced in a way that other words are not pronounced in that way. For example, we were just talking in Greek class, we were talking that the name James in Spanish is Santiago. Oh. And in Greek is Jacob, I think, or Jacobo.
Yeah. Something like that.
And it's just like, why in the world did it pass to James from Santiago, from Jacob? Like, it's just doesn't make any sense. And then we start like going back and seeing how names change and why it was like that. But the point is that it gives us reality to our world. So when we don't always need to go and find out why a word is pronounced that way, or like why is this city here and not there, but the fact that there's something why, the reason why in the back just gives it reality.
Yeah, for sure.
So I feel like this book also does that well, that brings reality to it.
And one thing I think that people often, that's a point that's brought up a lot, particularly with world building in general, but with Sanderson often as well. But it has an interesting dynamic as well, where then when he introduces something new to you, it doesn't feel ever like he's just pulling it out of thin air, or it's a convenient plot contrivance. You're like, this is clearly intentional, I just don't know how yet, or why it's here in this particular scene. I think of like the first time you hear some of the Kandra names. It's like Tensoon. It's like,
yeah.
And it looks very weird on the page, and it's kind of like, wait, what's going on? But you're like, I'll learn eventually, because everything else has like had dropped.
That one was so out of thin air, the Kandra one, that I Googled it. It was the only thing that I spoiled to myself, because I was just like, I thought I had missed something. I was like, what is going on? What in the world is a Kandra? And I'm like, what is a Kandra? And I'm like, oh, and then when I'm reading, I'm just like, oh, I was gonna know later if I would have kept my mouth shut in my
patience.
if I would have been patient enough, I would have known. I remember while I was reading it that you were all the time like, you'll know, Melanie, you'll know. There's a reason. And I'm just like, I just wanted to move on.
I mean, I was hesitant to sit down and have this discussion, because I was like, I don't know if I can talk at all about Sanderson without spoiling things for you.
Yeah, if you spoil, I'll kill you, but then I'll block it for you guys if he spoils something of the next books, but then I'll also stab you with this. So, but, well, the point is that, I think the world building is really good. I heard a criticism about it, saying, like, there's no a real culture in the book, like, there's no, like, our original culture, and I was sympathetic to that comment, because it is true that the only thing that he did, well, I like that you said that it was like a medieval world, kind of science fiction in a medieval world, and that was exactly what they were saying. Like, it just feels like the medieval world with these powers of allomancy.
Sure.
So there's nothing like new about it. There's no like new cultures. Well, you have the religions, I guess, of says it. But you don't have any new culture of writing. You don't have any different culture of how the systems are. It's very much as the same. It would be like hundreds of years ago. How would be the world, but just with this added stuff.
Yes, that would definitely be where I'd say his maturity as an author improves. It's hard for me to say, on just having reread this, whether or not it's... I was struck this time around by how much he's actually intentionally left out. Knowing, obviously, the full plot of the trilogy and other works he's written, there were times when I was like, oh, he could have dropped hints about this, but he chose not to. And I think a lot of that was just like editorial, like keeping the book, it's already pretty chunky at 500 something pages. Yeah. So I think some of that was involved. He already had a fairly plot heavy book, with not really a lot of space for anything like extraneous.
Okay.
Part of what you'll find, and I don't think this is a spoiler, having finished the book now, the first one, with the Lord Ruler's death, things shift drastically, obviously. And so suddenly it allows for the characters in this setting to actually explore their larger world more themselves. So they themselves learn more about some of the nuances of the world. And the culture of this, like the Scar, for example, it's not exceptional. It's poor medieval peasantry kind of stereotypical thing, but his other series definitely pull that out much more. They weave the magic into like the everyday life much more noticeably. Whereas this, they're almost mythological figures.
And I would say, I don't know if that's a negative thing, it's just how it is.
Yes.
You could do something, it could be completely different. It could just create a whole new culture. Something like Tolkien does in his books is very, very just everything is different, and the fact that you have the hobbits here and you have these elves here and everything just creates all the magic, as you said, is just very embedded in the culture of the book, whereas this one is just the magic system that is great. I really liked it, put it into this medieval world, which is not necessarily bad. Is an understand. I can understand the criticism, but I don't. The question is, was he wanting was that what he wanted to do? Yeah. And if the answer is yes, then it's just like, well, maybe you don't like it, but it's not a bad thing. It's just the way he did it.
And I think the criticism also misses, like, let's take The Hobbit. Have you read the actual Hobbit book?
I haven't read that.
Okay. It's a much more condensed story than Lord of the Rings. I mean, it's a children's story, and it's a hobbit, 12, 13 dwarves, 12, and Gandalf, and they go off, they trek across the world, and they fight a dragon, steal his gold, basically. Very straightforward, and has almost nothing to do with elves, or magic, or any of the other, like, rich spiritual kind of symbolism and meaning that is so embedded in the actual Lord of the Rings. And I think that's kind of, like, you could read The Hobbit and be like, oh, well, he failed to, like, show how the Middle Earth is, like, full of all this rich magic and lore and stuff like that. So, well, yeah, because it's a story about a hobbit and a bunch of dwarves. And that's just not really kind of built into who they are either. So I think that could be a response to the criticism of this. Like, the Scar, I mean, part of the sadness of their lives is they know nothing. They're just, like, farm slaves their whole lives. They don't know anything about even their own world. And again, that changes. Okay. That's all I can say.
Yeah. And something I also, like, maybe staying there a little bit more on the world building. Something I think I heard in a criticism and I agree with is that I find a little weird how the fact that you are an allomancer, is that how you say that? Allomancer? Does not define your status. So yeah, in that sense, Ska cannot have it. But then the nobility, there's nothing between the Ska and the nobility besides money that separates them. They're not like different type of humans. The only thing that they don't have is smiling because there's a spoiler in mind. Yes. The only thing that they don't have is the Lord Ruler. In this book, the Lord Ruler said that the kind of like the Ska were did not support him. Like, it was the nobility that supported him before, but I don't know a lot of, that's the only like mention I think in this book. But the point is that still, it's like the nobility, they cannot even say when they're allomancers. Like, it's usually like kind of almost a secret. It's not a terrible secret, but it's kind of people kind of know, but it's not something you can brag about. You have to do it in the like quietness of your life. And then you have Ellen that is going to be the king. Like not the king, the venture, like, the heir to the house, yeah. And he is not an allomancer, so it's just like, there's no reason why you are a high person, a high lord, more than that's just, so it's so like this world. So I think like the magic system failed there in not making them like especially powerful because of their allomancy, which we could have done. I actually
think that in some ways that's more realistic though, because and I think that's kind of a point. I don't think he goes out of his way to make it, but like the houses are powerful, like the high nobility. The only thing that separates them from all the other nobility in the Scar is that they are like hyper successful like merchants, and they're brutally like they're cutthroat in how they like gain wealth and power and influence. And so it's interesting that kind of power is held as more powerful than even like a Mistborn. Okay. So the combination, like most of the high nobility houses, I mean, like Shan Ilario, for example, like she's the heiress of one of the high houses and is herself a Mistborn, and
she's not. She's a Mistborn.
She is a Mistborn, yeah.
She was a Mistborn. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. I
forgot the combination
to be,
of her, that power, that potential for like hyper violence, combined with the intrigue and the politics and the influence of her house, makes her even more lethal. Which is why they all have to like keep it as if it didn't exist.
Yeah.
Right, because as soon as one draws attention, everyone else would get rid of her.
Yeah.
So it's. I think he actually has a more grounded dynamic of like different kind of like powers struggling against each other than more simplistic fictions.
I don't know if I like it, but I understand what you mean. I understand like what would be the reason why he would do it that way, to keep like all that power and political system going on. But I'm like, Something I don't know where this is gonna land, in what theme it's gonna land, but I just want to discuss it and I don't want to forget it.
Okay.
Something that I feel, maybe in plot. Yeah, the next one is plot. So I think this is lands in plot well. Something I didn't like, that I felt I didn't understand. Maybe you have an answer for it, but I just was like, what is going on? Okay, so every Mistborn or every like Allomancer that was a Ska was killed immediately. Like, that was they will be killed. When they were found, they were killed. That was like what would happen, because they cannot exist, definitely. And then I think I found a mistake, a big plot mistake, but I might be wrong.
Okay.
And you correct me. But I think I was just like, wait a second. So you have Kelsier, that was an Allomancer, because he was like the son of a Ska and a nobleman. But he had not had his like snap moment. How did he call it like that? Like snapping.
When you snap, yeah.
Yeah. So he had not had his snap moment, but he was planning to rob the house of the Lord Ruler with his allomancy. It was with his allomancy, but he had not.
His wife.
It was just her. She was the only one who had it.
She was a Tin Eye. He didn't have any allomantic powers. He was just a scam artist.
But this is the thing. When he went that time, I think when they narrated it, it's like as if he is already a Mistborn. Or maybe I just put it because I have it in my head.
Yeah, so there's 3 instances where in the plot of the first book where they try to get into like the inner sanctum of Craddock Shaw, the Lord Ruler's palace. Mm-hmm. The first one is Kelsier and his wife Mare and a smoker guys who hide them from allomantic powers. The 3 of them try to break in before Kelsier gets sent to the pits of Hashin and get discovered. The reason why he thought Mare betrayed him is because the Lord Ruler was able to detect through the smoker that she was burning tin.
Oh, okay.
So he shows up and goes, "Oh, thank you," because if she hadn't been there, he probably would have succeeded.
Okay. But then this is my other thing. Why would they send her to the pits and not kill her immediately? Because he would kill immediately. Like, why would you risk it to send someone to the pits that was an Allomancer? Like, he killed So I just found a little weird that she was sent there while she was an Allomancer.
Yeah, that's a valid question. I don't know if that could be a plot hole. It could also be that even at the end, after Vin like tells Kelsier this, because she's the one who realizes she can see through the smoker cloud, copper cloud. Even then, it still remains a theory. It's just she could still have betrayed Kelsier.
Well, even if she betrayed him, it would make more sense that he would send her there, the Lord Ruler. Yeah. But if she did not, it would be weird that he didn't kill her on the spot.
So that leaves it still a bit ambiguous to the readers.
Yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my head if that's answered later on, if that gets revealed ever. Because you do learn more about Kelsier.
No, I
know.
My heart. Okay, but plot. Let's talk a little bit more about plot. I think it's very connected to the world building. So there's not much I want to say there. I don't know if there's something else you had in mind, but yeah, I really liked the plot. It was really interesting. It was really, really interesting. I liked the plot twists. They were just great. Great. Do you have a plot twist that was your favorite?
Oh man.
I have mine. You maybe will take it, but it's okay. Go for it.
I had like 3 pop into my head, and all of them are like spoilers for later on in the story.
But like it's not in this book.
No, that like the event happens in this book, but they're so tied in. To, you don't know what's happening until later on in the story.
Okay.
Keep it to
the book.
If I had to say, it's got to be between Kelsier's death, Because I mean, I remember the first time I read that. I mean, am
I was like,
naive,
what in
14
the
years old?
world? No,
I
he
read, like,
cannot.
a whole other chapter before
I
realizing
wasn't
that he was actually
convinced.
dead.
Yeah, I was not convinced that he was dead
I know.
until she went to him and she said like this whole side was
Oh no,
off.
I didn't believe for like the following chapter. I was like, he's
I
gonna
know.
pull the rug out from
Oh
under
my
me somehow,
goodness.
and Kelsey will somehow still
When
be
she
alive.
said that like half of his smile was still there, I just like burst into tears. I sent a video to him like in the middle of the night, crying like.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop crying for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that was crazy.
I mean, even on the reread,
I couldn't
14
believe
years
it.
later, I'd still choked me up.
And there were still like 70 pages to go.
Yes.
And I was like, I thought Kelsey was our man. I was like crazy.
No,
That's crazy.
not a man, but a
Oh
hunter.
my goodness, that was a big plot twist. I still do not feel okay with it. I don't know. I don't want to spoiler of the future books, but I was waiting for Kelsey to appear. I'm just like, the 11th metal makes you unkillable. Like I thought he was just gonna stay alive forever, honestly, that same day, I got a feeling, and I told my mom, because my poor mom, she has not read the book, but she had all my. She actually entered the room when I was crying. I'm like, Kelsey! My mom is just like, what the heck? But I told my mom that morning, that was at night, I told her that morning, I think this character is going to die.
Mm.
I had a feeling. I was like, he's too young to be a couple with Bean, which I thought at the beginning they were just going to put them together, but now no, he's too old. There's not going to be a romance story there. And then he's still an amazing character to stay alive. I'm just like, he's going to die. That's just gonna happen. And then when he but I didn't think it was gonna happen in this book. I was just like, it's just gonna happen like way at the end, like on the third book, like last page. He's just gonna die. But I had never, it just took me, I haven't been surprised like that in so long.
It's right at the moment of his greatest success as well. He's just killed an Inquisitor, he saved his crewmates, the Scout Rebellion.
Yes.
It's just a single line, you're like, wait, what? It's like it happens too fast. It's like,
It's
even though
just-
you're reading,
it's
it's
just
like
gone.
a jump scare.
Yes. Oh my goodness. That was an amazing plot twist.
Yes.
Another plot twist that I loved, well, twofold. First, Marshall's death.
Yes.
It was a plot twist. It wasn't like that big. Like it wasn't like Kelsey that was like the main character, but it was, it was
And quite out of the blue. It's just like
Yeah,
that,
and-
you're like, oh, he's
yeah,
just gone.
yeah, and he's also very much like he's so like in that moment you start liking him more, because at first he's just like this jerk,
Mm-hmm.
but then like they make you like him a little bit more, and then he's like so given to the cause, and then all of a sudden he's dead, and it's just like what? But then when he comes out as an Inquisitor, I was like, whoa!
Yeah.
I stood up and I'm like, oh my god!
He walks in, just drops all the spikes on the other Inquisitors. It's
Yes,
like,
that was so
such a good
cool.
moment.
So great.
Yeah.
It was amazing. A plot twist that I liked, but it was a little something I didn't like about the plot. Okay, let me go to the negative. And okay, before. What would you give to the plot out of 5?
5 out of 5.
Oh my goodness, you're
I'm not
so
really. Well, I can't think of anything I would try to do differently that would improve.
I will tell you.
Like,
But
okay,
you should do
okay,
this.
yeah, you go first, and then I'll try to reevaluate.
Okay. So that last one, that's when I also put it there. I put it in my comments. We were just talking about that he read my book, so he
When
was
Alan
distracted.
comes and saves the day.
Yeah. He doesn't even save the day. He just came. But like I didn't like when I don't know. I don't think I'll find it. But like I really didn't like those scenes there. So let me try to like re-narrate it. But Kelser dies, and then she is just like, I'm just gonna go there. So that's how it happens, right? I don't remember well, but she's taken the decision that she's just gonna go to the palace, to the Lord Ruler, and try to kill him. So she's just...
Her first goal is to get into the secret sanctuary
to see in
and
the
find
room, like...
something that would help her defeat
Yeah.
the Lord Ruler.
Yeah, so she just comes and she gets like a badass just ready with all her little medals that she's gonna use, and it's great. It's cool, and it makes sense because she has just seen Kelsier how to kill an Inquisitor, and she's like, he just showed us how to do it, and now she knows how to like face these people. So she's ready for it, and that makes sense. That's not out of line with the plot. So she goes there like a crazy madman, and she enters. She just like, and then she finds the old man there, and she the Lord Ruler, and then when she uses the 11th metal, she just sees them like in different. That's what happens, right? She sees them like in their different ages.
She sees him in the past, two different versions.
Okay, two versions. Yeah, in the past, and then she's captured. Like all of a sudden, this badass girl is just like captured. So I thought that was a little bit like, but it's okay. And then she's put like in the jail, and says it comes. I was saying that I love him.
Such a good character.
She's an amazing
You
character.
will fall more in love with him.
I am, but I'm already started the other book, and I'm already falling in love with him. He's amazing. I love him. So yeah, let's say it comes.
Anyone who's read the trilogy, oh man, you really like Sosa at the end of it.
Okay. I love him. But well, the point is that he comes, and I think that was a cool plot twist too, when he just like used all his strength and he just like takes her out of there. Great, okay. I was a little, maybe it's my lack of English knowledge, but like, I was a little confused when they go out, and then like I was confused about how it went. Like that scene is just so confusing when they go out and then they face the Inquisitor again, and then comes Ellen. How far is the palace from the Venture Keep? Because Ellen just like appears there with like.
It's not explicitly told how long Vin was unconscious for, so
Okay.
Assumedly, at least a few hours have passed.
Okay.
Because like some of the keeps have already been attacked, like the noble houses have fallen. The whole city is kind of in an uproar, so like some time has passed.
So like all the city just comes to the palace like a bunch of crazy people.
Okay, so the way that final scene plays
he's defending his final scene.
Well, I saw your like what the heck?
I was like, what? This is stupid.
And I was like, and so I actually reread some of that, and I realized why you were confused.
Yes. Okay.
Basically, what happens is Vin gets captured.
Yeah.
And then she's brought before the Lord Ruler.
No, before she's brought before the Lord Ruler. Oh, she's first brought before the Lord Ruler a second time? No, she's put like in the jail thing. Before she's brought to the Lord Ruler. She's put in the jail and then Zayset comes. And then when everything happens, she's captured a second time.
So Vin is captured and knocked out. Mm-hmm. She is then brought before the Lord Ruler. He's on his throne. So she first finds him in the sanctuary in the hut.
Yeah.
She's knocked out. She's then brought to the Lord Ruler. He's on his throne. The Inquisitors are there and her father's there.
Okay.
And so that's where it's revealed that the Inquisitors have been trying to usurp power from the Obligators.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, there was already like mentioned before that there was like something happening there.
I think Marsh drops a few hints.
And then they wanted her, and it was just like, why in the world they want her?
She is proof
and that was
that the High Prelin has.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah, so but that's important because that ties into the next thing. So she's then taken back to prison, and that's where Sazed finds her, breaks her out, and like one of your you were confused by is like, well, where's all the Inquisitors? They're up with the Lord Ruler, basically undergoing like a legal courtroom scene where
but it's just
where
like
the Lord Ruler
these people are so powerful and they listen to everything so well, and all of a sudden now they are just like men that are having their little meeting upstairs.
That's one of I mean, the Lord Ruler is just a man.
Yeah, I know, but like I just feel like it's just unlikely that there was just like no other.
So there were guards outside the prison. Most of them, however, have been sent off to deal with the Scar Rebellion already. Mm-hmm. So a few hours have passed. Kreddick itself isn't ever heavily guarded. We're told that right at the start when Kelsier and Vin first go into the sanctuary. They just basically walk through the front doors because there's no wall around it. Because the Lord Ruler's like, what? Doesn't care. So there's only a handful of guards still like in the prison part of the palace.
Okay.
And that's where Ellen shows up and distracts them, giving Vin time to find the vial and drink the metals. So the Lord Ruler and the Inquisitors, they're all up in the, like, the top of one of the towers,
Mm-hmm.
and most of the rest of the soldiers in the city are trying to not get murdered by this rebelling Scar. So that kind of is how that scene played out. And so then, they basically could just walk out again, because there wasn't really anyone else to watch them.
But I just found that, like, dumb.
You thought it was a bit convenient?
I think it was not only confusing, but, like, a dumb way. Like, it just went out of everything that has happened so far. Like, this is such a, like, protected and impossible to penetrate place, and so, like, weird, and I just felt it just became so nothingness in that moment. It stopped being strong. I actually kind of
liked that. I can see why, but, like, rereading it, I was struck by the fact that, like, basically, like, Krennic Shaw is only feared because the Inquisitors just chill there, basically. And there's, like, 7 of them. And so it's like, when they're not present, it's like the Lord Ruler actually has no control. When, if he's out of the room and none of his Inquisitors are there, it's just a handful of Scar soldiers at the door. And Vin's just like, I don't want to kill you. And it's like, it's really interesting, actually, that in many ways, that oversight on the Lord Ruler actually leads to his death. Because the guard that she allowed to leave helps save her, and then she goes straight from there and kills the Lord Ruler. So, like, that, you're right, it is an oversight. It's almost, like, shocking how easy it is for Ellen just to walk in, a little bit of chaos, and he just walks into the prison, basically, with 5 dudes. And it's like, that shouldn't happen. But the Lord Ruler was an egotistical maniac who thought he was untouchable, so he didn't have to care. So I can see why it's set up,
I understand your point, but I also feel like it's a little,
stretched.
like, it's just like, we're helping him. We're just like, okay, let's help you understand this scene, dude. I don't think it was as well portrayed.
I
understand what you mean, but it wasn't.
He narrated it was rushed. I think there's enough groundwork from the rest of the story that it's enough framework exists for the scene for it to be believable. But yes, I do agree. I mean, he was
rushed, right?
Yes, the ending was definitely
am I the
rushed.
fuck here? A conversation really the fuck. I was like, what are you talking? Like, the way he just comes there and they're like, yes, and I see you're a Mistborn. That's rather interesting. And I'm like, what is happening? Why are you talking about her being a Mistborn? Just move the heck on. That was like, well, yes,
come on. The guy just shaved up and rescued the damsel in distress.
He didn't rescue no one. He didn't rescue no one. He just his 5 little dudes. It was so dumb. I'm sorry. I really didn't like that, but it's okay.
Well, that's what makes it.
That's my only place that I'm just like.
Useless.
That's terrible. But we're gonna get there. Okay, so writing style. I'm going slow on this, but it's okay. It can be a long video. Writing style. So. Oh, what would I give the plot? I think the plot... This is something I didn't like about the plot, plus something more. Maybe it's going to writing style, but like I didn't like it went so slow that I commented this to you, but I feel like things could have been embedded in more action, like information. There was so much information given in slow moments that I almost threw the thing. So I don't know if this goes like in plot necessarily, but I just don't know where to say it. But I just feel like the information, especially like in the middle of the book, could have been given in a better way, keeping me sitting down with the book. Because if I weren't doing this for this video, and if I weren't doing this knowing that I was gonna do it with you, I wouldn't have bought $50 trilogy already. Yes. I would have stopped reading the book. Like I would have given up. But I think it pays off. Like I'm glad I finished it. I do not regret finishing it. I think it was great at the end, but I feel that he could have given me more information, more embedded in the plot, that I wouldn't feel so much like, oh, this is useless. And then I'm like, well, actually it was important. I needed to know this, but I wish I could have been given it with more action happening.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by action. There's extended chapters where it's, she's at a ball, or, he goes to visit the army. And so it's like, an action isn't really happening. But I was struck, actually, as I was rereading it. I was like, man, every single one of these chapters is like, there is I mean, he's weaving numerous things together in each chapter, but it's definitely what I got the feeling of, like, oh, this chapter is about, like, this, like, Vin learns this dynamic, or she figures out this thing about her powers, or this plot moment occurs which allows, you know, knowing the rest of the story, like, allows these things to kind of fall into place. Which is definitely, I think, on your first reading, it can be really hard to pick up on when he's doing those things.
I'm not saying the plot or like the world building and plot were not happening in those moments that I'm just like, oh yeah, I think this is gonna be important. I did feel that it was gonna be important. I just was not invested enough in what was happening. That I think he moves very slowly. I actually heard someone saying that you can delete half of this book and have still like
interesting.
Which I don't agree with that.
True.
I don't think you can delete half of the book, but definitely there are things that could have been given in a better way. Maybe even adding scenes, like maybe even adding actions and stuff that were not in the book that I just feel like that are not. I don't know.
Yeah.
That just can make someone. It doesn't keep me there. It doesn't keep me like
I would
turning
agree.
the page.
I mean, even on the reread this time around, I found I got to maybe right before the halfway mark, and I was, you know, I'd been reading for an hour. I was like, okay, you know, I'm gonna get up and get some food. You know, I wasn't like gripped the whole way through. Yeah.
Which I was at the end when these things were happening. I'm just, oh my god!
You can't
so,
stop reading.
Yeah.
That's true of almost every single Sanderson book. Like the last, he hits a point, and it's like he just like drops like a pin, and then the whole avalanche starts, and he just, I mean, I've literally pulled all-nighters reading, like, just finishing his, like, a third of an entire book, because it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. I read, like, the last 200 pages on the same day. I was just like, ah!
Yes. I'm tempted to say it's hard to build up to that kind of conclusion if you've, well, I think two things are happening. One, if you have a lot of action throughout the rest of the story, and it's very fast-paced and kind of gripping, I don't think you'd notice that switch, and that I don't think those conclusions would grip the readers quite as much.
Do you need to notice that? Because, like, I'm reading The Hunger Games, for example, that you have not read because you are a bad person. You should read it. I'm reading The Hunger Games, and the nature of the story and what is happening is just like you have to keep reading it. Obviously, at the end, it's explosive. It's just like more, and it's the same. It's true for all of the books on the Hunger Games series, but all the book, you are just like, you need to know, you want to know, and I don't think you need to have very boring pages to feel that difference on the gear.
I just wonder how reasonable it is, particularly in this one, when he's setting up a heist plot. It's like action, if they get discovered, it's over. Like, it's really, like, it's a win or lose. There's no kind of, like, back and forth power struggle going on here. It's like, if they get discovered, that's it. They're done. So it is hard to see how he could, like, build in regular conflict.
Yeah.
And I also think I'm tempted to say the reason why, and this is actually true of a lot of Sanderson stories, that there's often a heavy leaning on, like, character, political, world exploration and learning that occurs kind of in the middle of a lot of his books. Like, his intros tend to be quite interesting just because you're being introduced to so much new stuff, and it's like, oh my goodness, every page is like, you're like, wait, who's this character?
The prologue, it's called it's not a prologue, it's a preface. Was so good. I remember reading it on
Sanderson hooks
it's a prologue,
really well.
it's a prologue. It's called a prologue.
Yeah.
I was like introducing a power in my margin. I was like, wow! Yeah. I loved it how they like explained the power, and it was just so good. Yes. It was definitely interesting, but once that wore off, I was just like, what am I doing here?
I haven't heard anything, like, I've not sat and watched Sanderson talking about this. I'm sure he's addressed it in some of his, like, lectures or podcasts or whatever he does. My suspicion is it is intentional, because part of what happens in those really quiet and in some of his later books, I would happily use the word dull chapters, is he's giving his characters time to actually, like, just be in the world they're actually living in. And I think that does help make them feel so much more alive. Like, one of my favorite scenes on rereading this was after Kelsia's death, Vin's processing, and she's hovering like dozens of feet up in the sky, allomantically on a tripod.
That was
of
a
little
great
coins.
scene. I put a broken heart if you saw,
I mean,
that.
it's so good, but we know that he doesn't even need to mention it. Like when it just talks about it just in this sky, just like thinking. He doesn't he devotes almost no time to describing the scene. Like for most authors, it'd be a whole paragraph of like Vin's posture, you know, balancing up there in the mists and all that. Sanderson doesn't need to do that because we know what it looks like. Because we've seen her training arc, we've seen her chase Kelsiria back to Luthadel. You know, we've seen her just using, quite casually in many cases, her allomantic powers. And so I think it gives him, like, it's kind of a trade-off. Yeah, you get those more boring, less action-packed chapters, but then it provides him a lot more leeway to make them feel just much more, like, natural when they're used elsewhere or in more important moments.
So I'm not saying there are not positive things, but I definitely say that it could be better.
Yes.
I think that's a place of improvement, of growth.
I will happily give you that.
Okay. Thank you.
But I'm not convinced that I think he's writing in a way that I'm not sure the trade-off would always be beneficial for a lot of his stories. I also think, let's be honest, we're pretty inundated with just like more, gimme authorship these days. Like, I mean, obviously media and films and all of that doesn't need mentioned, but I think it's seeped into books a lot. We're expecting books to entertain us every moment of the day. And it's like, man, you read any of the really great literature in the past, and that's just not true at all.
Me and Skylar have very sad news. So we were recording this amazing video where things just got amazing, and we had amazing comments. And he just became like a PhD on Mistborn this last 30 minutes that you were not watching, because my phone ran out of memory, and we didn't realize we just got carried away
for like 50 minutes.
Yeah, it was like 50 minutes. Yeah, and it was great. And you guys missed it, but it was great. So you and I have now amazing knowledge. We got a great time discussing those last 50 minutes.
Yeah, that was the first half. We covered some ground. The second half, we got into actual discussion about thematic stuff and
it was characters.
It
was really fun. But the good thing is that I have another friend that is also a Mistborn girl. And she is coming to help us cover that part. So this video will have to be over in this part. It's gonna be part 1, but wait for part 2. So that way it's not gonna be that long. So it's good for you guys. And I'm sure this new discussion is gonna be better, amazing, with Emma, that is my friend that is coming, and she's gonna record the second part. So in our next video, we're gonna be talking about characters and themes.
Yep.
And Mistborn. And it's gonna be completely spoiler, so yeah. So if you got through here, know that there's gonna be another video where we're gonna discuss more in depth the main characters and the themes that we saw in Mistborn. And that's it.
All right.
Thank you very much, Skylar, for
my pleasure.
For talking with me for 2 hours and only having an hour of recording actually.
Yep.
There, but
these things happen. It's all right.
It's okay. It's okay. Thank you. He's great, right? Yes, he will come again, right?
Definitely.
Yay. Okay, bye.